I have a delightful guest in Elisa Abalajon, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, who's going to unfold her life story and inspire all of us today. So before I introduce Lisa, let me tell you a little bit about Leadership and Humanity. Um, Leadership and Humanity is a movement which we started about 4 years back with a purpose to reignite humanity in business leadership. The premise, which was the foundation of this thinking, was that all our lives we strive for building skills and capabilities. So there is extraordinary focus on building skills or building capabilities with a very little emphasis on who we are and how we inspire and engage people around us. So my goal was, after spending over 32 years in a corporate environment, to step aside and amplify the voice of human in the leader. Make it kind of cool to be a good human being, to become an inspirational leader. We run programs. We work with large corporates across the world. We do dedicated, customized interventions. And then we do initiatives. Initiatives include these dialogues, which you are participating today in, where we invite inspirational leaders like Lisa to unfold their life stories and inspire us to be like that. We also run a free mentoring program. One of my own learning was that if you're not visible, you're not vocal in the organization, there is a good likelihood that you may not attract investment from the organization. But people have aspirations and people have dreams. So we introduced LEH mentoring program for those who want to grow but have no access to good quality guidance. And I'm proud to say that we have supported over 250 leaders across the world through our mentoring support, and there is no fee involved. And I'm also very proud to say that Lisa, who's our guest today, has been a mentor with our LEH mentoring program. So with that, I will quickly transition to the dialogue today. Lisa and I go back about, I would say, 13 years. I met Lisa in 2012. And Lisa probably may or may not remember, this was in Istanbul. There was like a global meeting of Mondelez. I just joined the organization. And I met this very warm, smiling person who kind of welcomed me or connected instantly when we met for the first time. And then I had an opportunity to work with her for a while. And I think what I really admired in Lisa was not losing the sight of the outcomes without compromising her genuine, compassionate side as a human being. So the people she worked with, the teams she led, looked up to her for her compassionate yet very objective approach to business. Very tough times during the phase when we worked together, leading some large transformations or organization changes. Lisa was that source of truth, someone who made us realize what we were doing, we should be doing in the right way, who made us realize that behind every change, there are humans who are impacted. And behind every impacted human, there's a family which is sitting there. So all the choices and decisions we made, she was the one who kept us on the track. I looked up to her. I got inspired by how she showed up in those very, very difficult conversations. Lisa then moved on, and I've been silently and from a distance watching her growth. Today, she's the Chief Human Resources Officer and Agile Lead for Universal Robina Corporation. I had a chance to see her in that space too, about a couple of years back. And I admired her maturity without losing the connection with who she is, showing up as a leader who's still very compassionate, but who has a bigger picture in mind and is providing leadership to this large organization, which is very successful across the world. So I'm delighted, very happy to present Elisa Abalajon to you. And next few minutes, I'll invite Lisa to unfold her life story to our audience. Lisa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Atul. Such kind words. Truly, truly appreciate that. And I'm very, very privileged to be here. I hope that I am able to contribute something or anything to our listeners here, as I've also benefited from such sessions in my previous lives. So what I will be sharing with you would be 57 years of my life in 15 minutes. I'll try to make it brief, but I'll also try to point out the highlights, the defining moments that made me who I am, and hopefully you can get some inspiration from that. So in my next slide, what I plan to do is to cluster my life into chunks of 20s. So my first 20 years, the next 20 years, and then the current state where I'm in. So if you look at the picture on the left, you will see a lot of people with flags and arms raised up. This was a period where people in the Philippines were clamoring for change of government, change of governance. So I grew up in this era. I grew up in an era where students, professionals, blue-collar workers were wanting change. And I was also lucky enough to have observed this history, where hundreds of thousands of people gathered in the street clamoring for change. And despite the military, the tanks that were facing them, they stood fast and they held on to their belief that they can transform a country through a peaceful revolution. This happened in February 1986. I was then a second year college student taking up political science. And I was one of those who were observing what was transpiring at that day. And for some miracle, the government decided not to proceed and create bloodshed. The leaders of the government decided to leave. And so we were able to transition to a more democratic government. So imagine growing up in that era. And that for me was one of the defining moments that made me realize that if you have strong belief, if you have political will, what is impossible could become possible. And that also triggered some of my values as I was growing up. So inspired by that, I decided to take up law because I thought that I could still contribute to the bigger community. And I took up law and decided to specialize in employment law, where I felt I could make a difference. In the next 20 years after that, after college, I also started having kids. I have 3 kids, and I have a very supportive husband. And so at the time, I had challenges like many mothers who are working at the same time on how do you juggle what is important for you. And one learning I had at the time was you can't really have everything. You really have to prioritize. You really need to know what is the one that makes the matter most to you. And so I decided that my family is important. So definitely that's one area which is non-negotiable. But I also need to grow. And so I decided to get employed and also start my career. So juggling both was not easy, as many women, working mothers would know. And I could have chosen to just focus on family or just focus on career, but I decided to do both. But that means also have to bear the consequences of that, right? Because there are trade-offs that you also need to do when you prioritize things that are important to you. So for people that know me, I didn't do much socials. I was basically, I go to work, I go home, I go to work, I go home. And that was a choice that I made because I wanted to be good at those two things. And so my life for that 20 years, and when my kids were growing up, was really focused on them and really sharpening the saw, learning new skills, um, and chartering my career. And I was very lucky that my husband was very supportive. So the things that I'm not able to do because of work, he was always there to support me. So he himself made that choice. He also made the choice to give me the opportunity to grow. And I guess when you think about it in life, that's really what we do, right? We make decisions, we make choices, because every choice we make bears consequences. And that's how I sort of managed the balance between my family and my career. And that allowed me, when my kids have started to be independent, when they've started, take things on their own hands, they gave me the freedom to actually start helping me with my career, giving me the time back so that I can grow. And so for the next 20 years, when my kids are grown up, where I am now, I'm lucky that I've companies that invested in my training, and I am now, working for one of the biggest food and beverage company here in the Philippines. So that's where maybe I want to focus next is the companies I've worked with and some of the learnings that I've gotten from these companies. I've worked with other companies, but I think these three companies are where I learned a lot of things. And the things I learned have become part of who I am. So the first company that I have the pleasure and privilege to work for was Intel. Intel at the time was the biggest chip maker. And one thing that I appreciated with this company is that they honed a lot of my HR skills, because I wasn't really an HR professional. I was a lawyer when I entered Intel, but they turned me into an HR professional, and I'm forever grateful to them for that. So I had more job rotations that I had years in Intel. And whenever probably they felt that I was reaching my comfort zone, they will always move me, challenge me, and enable me to grow in the process. Things that I learned also about working in a company is not to sacrifice integrity. And there would be many occasions when you would be tested around that. But integrity is important in Intel, and the consistency of your action should be consistent with your words. And being a technology company, you need to innovate. You need to innovate very fast. And to allow innovation to happen, people should be able to take risks. And Intel gave me the courage to take risks, to speak out, and to be who I am. And so, wherever I go, I carry that with me. And I think it also helped me when I went to my second company, which is Mondelez, formerly Kraft. Here, I learned new crafts. Here, I learned more about leadership because I was given an opportunity to lead a country HR and the regional HR. And so observing the people around me inspired me because I see how they were able to articulate their vision, how the vision was translated into execution, how you can lead without any title, um, where you can influence and at the same time lead people. I also learned observing many of the leaders there that people appreciate if you're authentic, that what you say you do, and even if you're outside of work, you continue to be who you are. And so you don't change your values based on situations, but your values stick with you regardless of whatever situation you're in. Again, if you think about that, and the learnings I got from Intel, they're also very consistent, right? It's about integrity, consistency of action. It's about authenticity. I also learned that HR is not just managing payroll or just managing compensation and doing training. HR is a business partner, is a critical enabler to the business. And we should also be creating value, value to the business and value to people. Now I'm in a local company. So the two companies I've previously worked for were global multinational companies. So now I joined a local company called URC, and I've been here for 10 years now. So yesterday I was actually attending a service award, and we were awarding employees who've been with the company for 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25, 30, 35, and 40 years. So there were employees who stayed with us for 40 years. And when you ask them, why did you decide to stay in the company for that so long a time? What they really say is that because this company was like family. When they're down, the company will help them. And I think COVID was one of those, again, defining moments where HR was sort of leading a lot of things, right? And during COVID, that's where compassion really came into the picture, as we've seen in many other companies as well. But outside of COVID, this company really cared for people. They cared for them as if they were part of the family. So that's where I really felt that this company is leading with a heart. And being a local company founded by the owners, it was also refreshing to understand what it is like to be an entrepreneur. When I was with Intel or even Mondelez, we always want people to act like owners, to be entrepreneurs, right? But I see that more clearly in the current company I'm in. So when you talk to employees, they're very conscious of spending as if they were owners. They would be they would prioritize what they do because they will think that they should only do things that are important, that will add value. And that's really acting like an owner. So I've never seen it in action until I am in this company. So if you think through what I've shared in these three companies that I've been, you would see that there is something that connects them. There's something that is common beyond the business skills. There is a thread that that makes us believe what leaders should be. Leaders should lead with a clear vision, with a clear direction, which is leading from the head. But at the same time, there is a side of a leader that shows compassion, shows kindness, shows empathy, and that's leading with the heart. And so in many of what I've experienced, if there is one thing, I guess, that all companies strive to do is to be able to show both. How do you lead with your heart? at the same time with your mind. So if you go to the next slide.
Hi, Lisa. Your picture is
Right.
frozen. I think you're back
So you
now. We
really,
just lost like probably 5 seconds.
sorry for that.
No
Probably
worries.
my internet connection. Is it
No worries.
working now too?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you very well.
All right. So as I was sharing, Atul, some of the leadership stories that I've observed from other.
Lisa, we can't hear you. I think there's again some challenge with the internet.
I've done restructuring in Intel. I've done restructuring in Mondelez. Done restructuring as well in the company I'm in. But every time it's different. It's different because the context is different. The business environment is different. The people that will be in fact impacted will be different. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, but I think Sadev, can you hear now? Yeah, better. They can, yes.
Better. Wonderful.
Right.
Sorry for that. Sorry
No
if
worries.
I'm encountering technical difficulties. Apologies for that.
No worries,
Um,
please.
okay, thank you. So if you think about, just citing an example like a corporate restructuring, and I'm an HR professional, I've been doing this for 30 years now, right? But each restructuring I make, there may be a change management framework, but every execution is different. And it's because when you look at the context, you look at the business environment, and you look at the personalities involved, and you really listen to what is needed by the people who would be impacted, the different stakeholders, you would realize that there's really no single framework that you can use because each situation is contextualized, and that's leadership, right? um, Leadership is when you listen, you understand the implication to the people involved, and then you use compassion so that it's not so difficult. You mitigate the risk associated with the change. And so each leadership story would be different, even if the situation may look the same. And I guess what I would encourage everyone to do, as you move from being an individual contributor to a manager to a leader of leaders, is to make sure that you contextualize and you listen, and you actively evolve your leadership so that it matches or it adjusts to the needs of the people and the times. And so finally, on my last slide, as I reflect my close to 60 years of experience, yeah, I think when you're getting old, you tend to do more introspection, right? And I'm doing a lot of that nowadays. As you know, as I mentioned, I grew up in an era where people want change, right? As a young adult, I was a dreamer. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to change and make a difference to the country, and that's why I also took up political science and law. And then you realized you can't do that if you also want to have a family. If you also want your family to be comfortable, so you also have to work, right? But you try in every company I work for, every association that I work for, I really want to make an impact. And so as I'm reflecting on this, as I was creating these slides, actually, Atul, I was reflecting on, am I doing enough impact to the people that I work with? And so from the ambition of changing the world, the country, to making a big difference in our organization, now at the stage of where I'm in, I think I'm sort of thinking maybe the change for me right now is the change of myself. Like how can I be at, how can I give back what I've received, and how can I make impact on the people around me? So my circle has gone big from country to organization. Now I'm really thinking making an impact on the people that I deal with is probably the most that I could do at this point. And so that's it. My story has not ended yet. I think there's still more that I can do, and hopefully I've shared something about myself that is worth thinking as well for others. So thank you, Atul.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I mean, it has triggered thoughts and insights at many levels for me. So I'm almost kind of ready to jump with my questions to you, but let me first open it up to the audience. So feel free, it's your session. A very, very inspirational story from Lisa. And you told it in such a simple way, Lisa, that I truly hope that our audience is able to connect with a lot of small but very important anecdotes which you shared. I was kind of making my notes when you were talking. So I'm going to ask our audience to bring up your questions for Lisa. This is your session, not mine. I mean, I'll always find time with Lisa to have my conversations, but this is your time to ask her questions. Use the chat box or dialog box to bring your questions up, or feel free to unmute and bring your questions. So maybe let me start, Lisa. What you said was simple but deeply profound. Some of the things which really stuck with me, I think the first one, when you said that once you have a strong belief, uh, something which is difficult or may seem impossible becomes possible. And I can tell you, I've seen it all my life in the business world, but even beyond that, our limiting beliefs sit within ourselves. We decide our own boundaries. We kind of start to think about this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. But once you let go those beliefs and you stick to what is possible, it just opens up very, very different channels for you. And I think that's a message for everybody. You know, we decide our own boundaries, decide you make a choice to step out of that. It can be a game changer. I already see Dave's hand up, but I want to make another observation before I come to you, Dave. And that was also kind of stuck with me very, very profoundly. I think few words which you said in such a simple way, Lisa. Leadership is when you listen. And it really stuck with me because people are so eager to tell and talk about their stories that they have no time to listen to others. And when we stop to or cease to listen, we lose the connection with other people. We just are thinking of our responses versus trying to truly or deeply understand what others have to say, so that your point of compassion and connection will only come through when you really know what people need from you. So some very, very profound insights from this dialogue. But let me now come to Dave, a great friend and one of our previous guests, by the way, on this platform. So Dave, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Lisa. Great to hear your story. Really, it's very insightful for us. Just a quick one, as Atul also mentioned, that having a strong belief and will, it really helps someone to achieve, something in life. So, just a question: what role do you think resilience will play in developing a strong will? Or maybe if you can share some example from your life where a strong will help to achieve something from a personal or professional life.
And so I think resilience would require persistence, requires courage, to the point that you also don't want management, and um, you know, to stop you at any moment, right? So, but you also have to be factual. You also have to be data driven. You have to show market data. So all of that, which is the leading the head, right, plays into the picture. But that then, you lead with a heart, because that's really, the intent. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Lisa, I have more questions coming up, which is basically pushing my list further down, but I'll prioritize people who are asking the questions. Ashwin, your question is a great question. Do you want to come off mute and ask, or I'm happy to ask on your behalf? Ashwin?
Go ahead, Atul. I'm in a car, so it might be a little noisy.
Okay. So thanks. First, thanks for joining the session today. So Ashwin's question is very interesting, and I'll, by the way, condense it. And Ashwin, if it doesn't represent what you really wanted to ask, just feel free to jump in. So I think there is a balance between what the world expects from you, Lisa, how the world or your social kind of setup expects you to be, and then you define your own success in a certain way. How do you balance that, meeting somebody else's expectations versus what you truly believe in? Because you talked about the beliefs. How do you balance that?
Right. So I think you have to hear out what is expected of you, right? Really understand, why is it important that you deliver to that expectation? Because at the end of it, especially if you're talking with stakeholders or people that have invested on you, you need to understand their point of view. What is it that makes them think that this is something that I should be doing as part of what I do at work or in personal life, right? So first, understand the reason behind the expectation. If it's something that I think I could connect with my own personal belief, then I could adjust, and I will find a way that I am able to do both, right? But it starts with understanding the intent and the logic behind that expectation, because I've seen that as well, even with parents, right? Sometimes the parents expects you, that you be academically excellent, you be good in sports, and things like that, but your inclination might not be that. But then as you try to understand the point of view of your parents, I'm sure their parents just want that for you. So they think because it will help you be successful, right? And so understanding that, and it's okay if it will help make them happy. And at the end, you'll find ways anyway to make yourself happy and do things that are important for you as well. So it, again, based on context and intent. Right? Atul, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. Great response, Lisa. Ashwin, I hope it addresses your question, but feel free if you have a build on it.
Perfectly
Otherwise,
fine. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
super. Thank you so much, sir. There is a question from Nell. So I don't know the full name. Nell, you can come off mute and ask your question. Otherwise, I'll read it for you. Okay, so I'm going to read this question on her behalf. So her question is, what advice can you give to those newbies in the leadership role? I've just joined a new company where most of my team members are tenured ones.
So, I've encountered this as well, even when I was young, right? Sometimes you're managing people older than you.
Yes.
And if you're a newbie, especially fresh from graduate, it's a very, very challenging, I would assume, experience getting people to follow you, right? So what I think could help would be, number one, you have to build relationships. You have to connect with them on a personal basis. if you are able to win them, and there are many ways, right? You need to know what motivates them, what makes them happy, what will engage and get them committed. Really understanding from their point of view what is important for them will help you build that relationship. So start with relationships, right? Because the moment you start directing them and making it appear that you know more than they do, that will definitely turn them off. But if you make them comfortable, if you build that relationship first, learn from them, if you could, being a newbie and managing people who have more experience than you, I'm sure with humility, you could win them over by also being open to learning from them. So one is build relationship, be humble, show humility, show their worth, the value that they can provide, and then find opportunities for you to have quick wins. Quick wins could be in areas where you find that they may need more. Then you can create value by addressing that particular gap, whether it's a resource that they would need or helping them in problem solving. So then I think when they're more comfortable with you, they would be more open to your suggestions. But I think relationship is important. Being humble is equally important as well.
Very well said, Lisa. And if I may add to this, one learning I have had in my career, and I use it, by the way, in our program so frequently, is that people connect with who you are before they get inspired by what you do. And it's kind of quite unfortunate that we spend a lot of time to tell people what we do for a living, our CVs and our introductions before even we build a human-to-human connection. So your point on relationships, people are looking for a connection with you at a human level before they start to look for how smart you are in terms of delivering your outcomes. So everything you said makes a great sense. And I think those of you on the call who are just starting your career, I think these are pearls of wisdom from Lisa. Try to build a connection and build a relationship and build trust. And that's where the work starts to happen. So I'm going to go to the next question, and that's from Sahadev Panch. Sahadev, again, thanks very much for joining. Happy to ask on your behalf, but feel free if you think you would like to ask yourself. Sahadev? Okay. So I'm going to read the question, and this is about a very simple question, Lisa. Working in a multicultural environment, so you've shifted countries or lived in different countries, different organizations, multinationals, now a local company. How did you manage the cultural shifts or changes?
Yes, very difficult. So I've lived in the US, I've also lived in Singapore, but even when the Philippines, when you change companies, there's always a cultural shift. So when I work for a global company, where your performance, your last performance is the only thing they probably remember, right?
Yeah.
And you come to a company where I'm in now, where for so long as you don't steal, you have integrity, they will forgive you, regardless of what your performance could be, because they feel that an employee is worth investing. So let's train the person. I'm sure the person will. So very different, right? So when I first came to an organization, I came in with a thinking that should be paid for performance. These are things that sorry, am I muted?
You're audible and clear. No, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, okay. So very different culture, right? And so, but you adjust. And there will always be pros and cons in any of this, right? Because I also value pay for performance. And that's one thing I'm introducing That's one thing I'm also reinforcing without making a shift where people stop caring about each other. And so going to this company, that's why I think there is value on diversity. There's always value of having someone fresh, having different perspective, right? And so we've started, creating matrices for merit planning. There is different performance metrics for incentives, and so but at the same time, you're not changing the culture of people caring, right? You're just elevating performance, which will benefit not just the company, but the employees themselves. So do it in a way that is not offensive, that's not aggressive, but value adding to the organization and to the people.
Very well said, Lisa. I think that's a great response. Sadev, I know you're not able to mute, but I think it should be, or unmute. I think it should have addressed your question. Next, I'm going to go to a very good friend of mine, someone who's helped me shaping up LEH, Irishni. She's joining us from Johannesburg in South Africa. Irishni, you can unmute and ask your question, please. Irishni, are you able?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm in a coffee shop, so I hope you can hear me.
Very well.
Great. So lovely to see all the familiar faces, and thank you.
You're back mute.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to my question, which I typed out already. Just a second. How do I get?
So, Irishni, if it is uncomfortable because you're outside, I can read it for you. Is that okay? Okay, perfect. So, Irishni's question is that thank you for highlighting the need of getting the buy-in of the business leaders as HR leaders. Lisa, you talked about, the situation where you had to wait and persist and then eventually get the buy-in. What was the most challenging situation that you were faced with? How did you manage to let the stakeholders think and reflect in a different way? In other words, how did you convince them to align on the action which you wanted to take?
Okay, so I think number one is with business leaders, you have to be factual. You have to speak with data. So whenever, and that's because that's how they're wired, right? So when you communicate to a specific audience, you have to communicate in a language that they can understand, and business leaders understand data. And so when you present them with data, that is also infused with data, not just internal, but even external. I think they will listen to you. So for example, even the HMO situation I mentioned, right? So you have to show market data. You show how uncompetitive we are. You show them that attrition is caused by people leaving because they are looking for a company that cares for their dependents, and they translate that into HMO. You show data on declines on offers because people are not willing to join you because you don't have this benefit that is important to them. So you have to show them data that convinces them that it is worth investing on this particular program. And then you show them data that it is expensive, but there are cost mitigation that we can provide. If we improve our clinics, people will go to clinics versus going to hospitals. Therefore, it will reduce the premium. And so you go and on and show data. So first is really show data and speak with logic versus emotions. I think secondly is you have to find a circle of advocates or people who are willing to support you, because you cannot do it on your own, right? So you have to have enough advocates with you who can speak also in your behalf. So it's important that you know who these advocates are and what they can do for you, and work with them, partner with them to drive your cause, to secure the commitment of management. And I've seen that played over in many programs that were very difficult to implement. Is when you have that circle of influencers that can actually help you as well. So maybe to data, speak with data and work with your network.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Lisa. Irishni, a thumbs up if you got your answer. Then I can move on to the next question. So if Shalini is on a line, I'll ask Shalini to unmute. Shalini is again one of our big supporters, part of the LEH family. She has a great question for you. Shalini, are you there on the call? And if you are, please unmute and ask your question. Okay, so I'll ask the question on Shalini's behalf. So she's talking about the circle of impact. And I think that also, by the way, resonated a lot with me, Lisa. So you had these big dreams, all of us have when we grow up, that I want to change the world. Then you had a context in the circumstances or situation you were part of. And I think the realization that actually the change starts with me. And I can, instead of thinking this huge shift I want to carry out, if I can change myself, and through that, I can touch lives one by one, I can change the world around me and create a ripple effect around me. So she wants to know your thoughts on how did the shift happen from I want to change everything to maybe this is the person I want to change. And through this person, I want to enhance my impact.
Yeah. So I think it happened to me when, I do a lot of introspection. And in one introspection, I was feeling a little bit uncertain about, am I still on track on the person I want to be? And I reflect on what I wanted to be when I was young, because I remember still having that document that showed my dream and my ambition of making change. And I reflect and I ask myself, I don't think I did that. I don't think I lived to my dream. And then I also thought, but am I being too hard on myself? Am I not making an impact wherever I am? Because maybe the impact that I'm making, I don't see the rippling effects. Like if I help someone and that person felt grateful, is that person doing the same thing to other people? And is the other people that they supported and helped, are they doing the same thing? And so I thought that instead of making big, bold moves, maybe if I just touch people one person at a time, every person I touch and make a difference will feel a need to do the same thing. And maybe that's where the rippling effect of one's goodness can carry over and over to many other people. So maybe I don't have to change and be, don't have to be a politician or a senator, but maybe if I just do good, one person at a time, maybe I could be making impact and making that rippling effect. So that's sort of how, because I was also doubting myself. I feel like, am I still doing what I dream? And maybe that's a way for me to feel comforted that what I'm doing is still adding value to others.
I think it's so deeply insightful, and I think if we can all make that shift in our minds, the change we can bring in is enormous, Lisa. And I truly hope that our audience and through this recording, people who will listen to this could learn from that. So we are getting close to the end of the session. I'll ask Te Benitez. I hope I'm taking the name correctly. So you are on screen. Please go off mute and you can ask your question directly.
Atul, Te is a good friend. Hi, Te,
Awesome.
I didn't know that you were there. My former boss as well at Intel. So we're
Fabulous.
going full circle here.
Yeah. Hi,
Hi,
hello,
Te.
Lisa. Well, wonderful stories of your journey to where you are today. And I'm just curious, you're now a leader of leaders. And being that position of leadership in a very changing environment that we have today, I sense that you have this influence with so much compassion, which I know has worked so well for you, more powerful than authority, which is your position today. So I'm just curious, how do you help other leaders get into the same space as where you are now?
Yeah. The beautiful thing there is we're in a function that actually enables that. And so one of the things that, at least within my organization, that we're really building on is on leadership. And in fact, Atul was one of the folks that we brought in because we wanted to build leaders who know themselves, who are self-aware of their own impact to others. Because I think that self-awareness will enable you to be a better leader, right? So how do you lead yourself first? And so that's one thing we're trying to build within our leaders, is that self-awareness of their impact to others. Only after you've gone through that would you be able to really lead others and lead the broader organization. So a lot of our programs are focused on these three. How do you lead yourself? How do you lead others? And how do you lead organizations? And so we've been doing that for the last couple of years. And I think, I'm hoping that it's making an impact on our leaders. And I've seen it as well, right? Because 50% of our executive vacancies are actually internal. So we tend to hire more internal leaders than before. And hopefully, when I'm like you, Ted, we've built enough leaders in the organizations that we work with that can build other leaders after them.
Fabulous. Well, thanks
Amazing.
very Thank you, Te, for asking that question. So I know we are almost at time. I will take one last question that's from a very close colleague and a friend of mine, and someone who's part of our fraternity in LEH, Anuj. And I had a similar question in mind. Lisa, you talked about choices early on. You talked about having clarity on prioritization, what matters most at a certain moment of our life. And how do we bring that clarity that this is what is important, this is what I want to do? During those choices, there are sometimes tough choices to make. So if you could really share some of those challenges which you faced and how did you deal with those while making choices?
Right. I think on a personal note, I've had offers from other companies that are more lucrative than the companies I've worked with, right? And so, and I don't do active search, right? They come and I entertain. But when I make a decision as to should I get, I'm just citing an example, Atul. It's difficult because it's when you're faced with financial gain, you would sometimes think, right, maybe I should just take this and rip from it and and milk it, right? But then you realize, am I gonna be happy? if I move to a company that's not aligned with who I am and the values that I have, right? Short term, maybe there's gain, but long term, I don't think I could stay in a company that doesn't resonate with me, right? So small things like that. It comes, choices comes every day in our lives, right? Small, big, you make those choices. And then I said, whenever you make choices, there are consequences around those choices. And so you make a choice not on a short-term basis, but you also make a choice based on what you think would be your long-term. And so in that simple example of should I take this offer, it's 50% more than what I'm currently getting, but I don't think I'll be happy long-term. So the choice have to be anchored on your values, on who you are. Because if it's anchored on that, the choice is much easier to make, right? And it makes you think long term. It makes you think actually about your own personal happiness as well. So yeah, so that's how I make choices. Atul, you're on mute.
I can go on and on, Lisa. I have a long list of questions, and this is before even my list, my personal preferred list of questions start, but I think we are at time. I want to thank you for inspiring us, inspiring me, which I have been inspired for a very long time. But again, it's a refresher. I think for everyone who's been on this call, your simplicity, your ability to articulate your thoughts in a very simple way, Lisa, but making a very impactful, meaningful reflection on everybody who's part of this dialogue. I'm sure those who will be watching the recording will be equally inspired. And we need more humans like you. And we need more humans like you in the business so that this impression of being cutthroat, that alpha male, you go drive outcomes, evolves into you can be a great human being and you can be very successful as a business leader, and you're a living example of that. So thank you so much for being our guest today. And be well, and we are all cheering for you. I can
Thank you.
very quickly, thanks a lot, can request Irish to bring up the slide for our next guest. So we'll continue to be in the space of bringing more humans like Lisa, who have great stories, who have built life, living their values, and creating a huge impact in what they do. So our next guest is going to be Vince Gruber. He's based in Switzerland. He just retired as a CEO of Mondelez Europe. He'll be our guest in the month of August, so please sign up and continue supporting our dialogues. So thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day and keep getting inspired by humans like Lisa. Thank you. Lisa,
Thank
thanks
you,
a lot.
everyone. Bye. Thank you, Bye.